You're tuned in to DJN TV Live with your host, Brian S. Red.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday night with Brian S. Red. What that means is that you should be going and grabbing something cold to drink. You should be finding a really comfortable chair. You should be kicking back and having one heck of a good time with Brian.
Heck yeah. How you doing, everybody?
It is a great night, Brian. We've got some cool things we're going to be talking about. But one thing we're going to be able to talk about a little bit tonight that was just shared by our friend Mike Dussault from Electro Voice is a new product. And some in our watching our video just got to see that over there. And we'll talk about that a little bit later because Brian knows a little bit about it too.
Interesting. I don't know anything about this.
Yes, yeah. Well, we'll have to talk. Maybe it'll be completely new information.
Maybe I have nothing to go on here.
So.
Maybe I'm the oracle. It could be one or the other. I mean, maybe I could have all the answers for you, or I could have no idea.
There aren't many answers on
because I haven't heard anything today, but I do have some information, and I might even have some product here. Might. If it's, I think it is. So, but if not, then I don't have it.
We'll get to that a little bit later and cover that one. Just going through and getting windows and everything all. We've got so many chat windows open and such. So,
all right.
Thank you guys for being with us tonight and such. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite bands. We've been kind of discussing what we wanted to cover tonight, and Brian said, let's kind of keep it kind of light and fun, and let's talk about bands, some of our favorite bands. So, Brian, kind of give us a setup of what we'll be doing.
I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook lately. They're organic. People are just making them themselves. Best band ever, go. And I've seen some pretty interesting answers. And I have a few of my own opinions on this. A lot of that is what I define as a band. And some of it is what I define as great. And what would make that, what would be like the perfect formula for a great band? And I have the answer. Mm-hmm. I have my opinion, I guess I should say. But I'd love to hear yours. I figured we'd start with 4 each and alternate back and forth and talk about this a little bit.
And as I was thinking about this, I was unsure of which direction to go from. There's obviously bands that produce a lot of hits and have a lot of commercial success. Then there are bands that are very successful. Then there are bands that have a unique sound and maybe are dynamically changing parts of our industry. And as I'm going through and such, it's like, okay, which angle do I want to take in this? So I did a little bit of a variety of different bands from different points and such to add to my list. So
okay,
yeah, that's what I kind of was doing. I probably put way too much thought into this today, but that's okay.
No, I probably did too, but it's okay. What do you have? I mean, we'll let you go first.
Okay, well, I'm going to start out with one of the older ones on my list, and I as one of the best bands, I have the Beatles in there.
Okay.
And the Beatles, the reason why I went with the Beatles is I would have loved to have seen them have a longer career. I think most everyone would have seen that. So they didn't get the longevity side of it. They didn't get the business side, the business nod either, from my perspective. But they really, they were a kind of a trend-setting, transitioning band that really was able to take and create not completely a new sound, but really bring a sound to mainstream and really help to form a generations of listeners' musical tastes. So they really would be one that I would consider one of the greatest bands of all time because they did what they did. And then as they went individually afterwards, I mean, they were some talented musicians and performers that really had a career beyond their time as a group. So
I'll say two things, and I'll discuss this. I won't rattle on for 5 minutes. I'll pause, I promise. I'll say two things right away. First thing I'll say is that on most of these lists that I've looked at on Facebook, they've said greatest band of all time, in parentheses, please don't say the Beatles. So that's almost like cheating to say the Beatles. But I agree with you.
Well, and that's why I wanted to preface it with why.
I agree with you. I agree with you for probably a different set of reasons. Mm-hmm. I will also say this. You talk about the business sense of the Beatles. I think after the Beatles, Paul McCartney in particular really got a good business sense about things. And in fact, I recently read that he has reacquired the catalog.
Everything, yes.
He had a conversation with Michael Jackson after they had done Say, Say, Say. And Michael said, do you have any advice for me for investments? And Paul said, yeah, you should invest in music catalogs because they're out there and they're hot. So the Beatles catalog went up, and there were bids on it. Paul reached out to Yoko and said, hey, let's put our dough together and try to buy this. Let's just put in a ridiculously high bid that nobody can beat. And they put in like $30 million. And they were outbid $90 million by Michael Jackson. So that kind of strained the relationship a bit. But Paul's reacquired it. So I recently read that.
Wow.
Just, I don't know how long ago, not long ago, weeks.
Yeah, it was very, very recent that I saw that going across. So yeah, that was my first pick of great of one of my favorite bands or great bands.
It's my number 4 pick as well, and there's a reason for it. When I think of band, you can look at this several different ways. You can look at a band as just as it is. Okay, they're on the album cover. That's a band. You could also look at a band as a group of people who create together. It's not a dictatorship. With the Beatles, I think it was for a while. With the Beatles, I think it was a Lennon and McCartney production. But they became a great band when George Harrison started contributing and when Ringo started contributing. That's when I think they became a great band, is when they were all in on it.
Mm-hmm.
They were all doing something. They all sang. That's another thing that's really cool about Beatles. Every one of them sang on something.
Yeah, exactly.
It leads on something. It was primarily Lennon and McCartney, but toward the end, you got a lot of George Harrison. And then I think starting probably with Sgt. Pepper, you started getting Ringo doing leads on stuff. They all wrote, they all contributed something, which is what makes them a great band. That's how I see that one.
Yeah, that was good.
And as far as their post careers, I've made no secret about this. I'm more of a fan of their post Beatles careers than I am of the Beatles body of work, because of that fact that they're just these amazing creative people who I think just eventually started holding each other back. They were able to go out and do what they wanted to do and make their personality shine. So you've got guys like George Harrison doing the cool, more moody stuff. And you've got Lennon doing the deep stuff. You got McCartney doing the fun stuff. And then you've got Ringo doing the silly stuff.
Yeah.
All their personalities were able to really come out, you know, and do these cool things with groups that they were the boss of. They were hiring and firing people in Wings and Plastic Ono Band or whatever, you know, you throw at it. There wasn't band at that point. It was, I'm the boss, you work for me. This is what we're going to do together. Not that they didn't collaborate with anybody, but it was more like that. Less band and more just solo guys just shining, like Prince, you know. Prince was never it was never a band. It was Prince and whoever he hired to play with him.
To play with him, yeah, especially in that case. You just mentioned, threw a word out, collaborate. Did Lennon, after they broke up, did these guys collaborate with? And obviously McCartney did when he did some duets and such with. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if Lennon did any collab work or.
No, Lennon didn't do anything.
Harrison,
they were getting ready to. They were getting ready to.
I think Harrison did with somebody.
What do you mean with other people?
With other people, like other names.
Oh,
like a.
Oh, sure. Well, I don't know that George Harrison. I don't know that John Lennon did.
I don't think he did.
But
aside from Yoko,
Harrison did a lot.
Yeah, Harrison.
Well, right,
I think did.
Yoko. That doesn't count.
Not so much.
I'm not saying that counts, but maybe. Yeah, George Harrison did. He was in Traveling Wilburys.
Mm-hmm.
He also he did some work with some Eastern musicians. That was kind of a big thing with him. Some of the sitar players and things. McCartney, of course, worked with Michael Jackson. McCartney, he recently worked with Kanye West. You know, he was always working with somebody.
Yeah.
So
David asks if still get requests for Beatles. Ironically, I've got this last wedding had Twist and Shout, and the next two weddings have Twist and Shout. I don't know if these were just Ferris Bueller's Day Off fans or what the deal is.
I usually always play Twist and Shout, unless they tell me not to. You know, I play it, and I also do Saw Her Standing There.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll do birthday. So yeah, I do these songs. I still play it, and people like it. They really like it. This is early Beatles catalog stuff, and Twist and Shout isn't even a Beatles song. I don't believe it's
Somebody, yeah.
yeah. So
Let me change my camera here. Okay.
oh, it's your turn. You get to go now.
Wait a second. Oh, because I took your first one and then you just built off the first
Oh
one.
no, we were both at the same one, so I just
Okay.
expanded.
So
you-
my second one is kind of going off the idea of a successful band that has been there for a long time, and they have developed into a business that is probably one of the more respected entertainment businesses in that industry. I'm talking about Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi, and his band, his corporation is who owns and runs, and he hires and fires, and he's put these musicians together who have been with him for a very, very long time in most cases.
yeah.
What I appreciate with John is not only he's able to continue to perform and perform at a very high level, but the amount of ownership he takes and how he treats this as a business, and knows that in order to continue to be successful, he's got to continue to put out a good quality product that these middle-aged women will continue to buy. And he does that, and he delivers time and time again. And I have numerous friends who have seen him perform over the last number of years, and you never hear him say, "Oh yeah, they were off," or it wasn't that good. They always are raving about how great the performance was, and the quality of the performers, and the instruments and the sound and everything, because he has really treated this as a business and has taken what they do to a high level.
Yeah. Yeah, there are acts out there who have it together like that. They have always seemed to keep their notes relatively clean. You know, him and Richie Sambora and the guys always seem to, I don't hear a lot of bad things about them. They good people. And John is a talented guy, not only as a musician or as a singer, but also an actor. He's a decent actor.
Mm-hmm.
He looks great. I mean, how old is that guy? 55?
Yeah, I was going to say he's got to be in his mid to late 50s now.
Yeah. Hey, he looks great.
Yeah. Again, he still packs the 40 and 50-year-old women into those auditoriums, and they're excited to see him shake his tight little tushy.
You know, for my 13th birthday, my mom bought me tickets to go see Scorpions at Alpine Valley Music Theater, which is a venue. It's still there. I don't know if it's still operational or not, but it was the biggest amphitheater in the Midwest to see a concert. Like Ozfest was there or whatever. So I've seen several acts there, but that was my first show at Alpine, and there was a local band opener, and then the second opener was a band called Bon Jovi, and they had just released a single called Runaway. And so this was like brand new, you know, and the Scorpions fans were kind of hardcore, you know, and I think the Bon Jovi stuff was a little light for them. So this is an outdoor amphitheater, right? And the crowd started revolting, and they were throwing sod at the band. I'll never forget that. Like they were tearing sod out of the throwing it on stage, and John Bon Jovi kept getting on don't do that. No, the Scorpions, they're nature lovers, man. They won't come out if you do that.
That is funny.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was interesting. That was my first exposure to Bon Jovi. So
just watching the chat room. That's interesting because of his songs, Runaway I think would be kind of a little bit more of a harder edge than some of his more higher.
Their stuff
not like Scorpion.
It's formula. They're very formula. They're top 40. They were there to sell records.
Yeah.
They weren't there to rock. They were there to sell records, you know.
Yeah, we're gonna put a bunch of hooks together, and there
we're gonna just woo teenage girls and be on Tiger Beat magazine. That's what they wanted to do, and they did it well.
And they did it well. Yeah, and
they did it very well. And they have the respect of musicians and industry and everything else. So they're not throwaway talented guys. So my number 3 pick, and I'm starting at 4. 4 was the Beatles. Number 3 pick. Oh boy, we could go so many different directions with this, but I'm going to go with the band Chicago.
Okay.
Talked about them last week a little bit. And the reason I'm going, and I got to be real specific about this. I'm talking about the Terry Kath years of Chicago. So we're talking, I guess, very late 60s through 78, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And what was so interesting about Chicago is that although the horn section always kind of owned the band, you had people who were contributing. And if anybody from, the band went away, the band wasn't the same. So you had Robert Lamb, he was doing some stuff, and then you had Saturday in the Park guy. He sang on that one. Then you had Peter Cetera, who was playing bass, and he was singing a lot. He became the main singer after Terry died. And then, of course, Terry Kath, who was rocking guitar, crazy guitar, Jimi Hendrix's favorite guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite guitar player, Jimi Hendrix? Oh, Terry Kath of Chicago. That guy's amazing. This big, giant white guy who sang like Ray Charles, which is just kind of cool when you think about it. I mean, the guy idolized Ray Charles, and he thought blues was cool, and he thought rock and roll was cool, and he just fused them all together. So you had several people contributing within this band to make that signature sound. And if you heard a song that either Robert Lamb or Terry Kath or Peter Cetera was singing, you would identify that with Chicago. It wouldn't be like, oh, who's that? That sounds different than Peter Cetera. No, you would know it was Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think they're cool. That's why I like them. And not to mention their body of work was huge, and they went everywhere from sounding like Spencer Davis Group to doing David Foster, beautiful David Foster songs with strings and things in them. So yeah, cool stuff.
The other day, after we talked in last week's show a little bit about Chicago, and I don't remember what I was doing, but anyway, Color My World came on.
Yeah.
And of course, then you start listening to the
Terry Kath
to him sing, and you start to, because I would have envisioned that Ray Charles connection. You can even pick up some hints of that in that particular track.
Oh yeah, and everything he sings, you can hear it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some songs we had talked about that you just were like, oh yeah, that you definitely can hear that. But even in the ballad, it's like, oh yeah, there it is. He's has that. That's really.
He was getting ready to go solo when he died too, so he was going to do the solo album, kind of like Peter Cetera was doing solo stuff. Would have been really interesting to hear what he came up with.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that he had completed an album, never was released, but I'd love to hear a Terry Kath solo album. Love to hear that. That could be very interesting. And what was funny was, and I think I've mentioned this before in other shows, but if you're familiar with Climax Blues Band from like the Midlands in England, that Couldn't Get It Right was their song. They wanted to sound like Chicago. So the lead singer of that band was trying to sound like Terry Kath. Like Terry Kath was trying to sound like Ray Charles. So the evolution of things. This is very interesting to me.
Climax Blues Band, they had another track.
I Love You.
Yeah, there we go. I Love You.
Ooh, I love you. Of course, that was a a very different sound.
Yeah, that was the big radio play here.
The 80s yacht rock kind of thing going on there.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Big airplay everywhere. 1980, 79, 80?
I didn't even check the date. I just wanted to make sure. I was looking to find out what that song was. Like, oh, I know there's a song. I know there is.
Very early 80s, yeah, Climax Blues Band. And then there's a band called Climax. It's a different band.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of an R&B act.
I believe so, yeah. Cool.
Your turn.
Next is three gentlemen by the names of Randy, Teddy, and Jeff. Randy Owen, Teddy Gentry, and Jeff Cook from the band Alabama.
Aha.
I went country with this one because what I like about Alabama is the body of work that these three have put together. They've got an incredibly large catalog of music.
They do.
And their music, at some point in time in my DJ career, it's like almost every song in the Alabama catalog I had probably played. Within reason, obviously. But of all the groups that I have probably played more different tracks from Alabama than any other band in my music library.
Yeah, wow.
Because there's just so many different things. If you want to do a two-step, there's some. If you're doing a swing dance, a country swing dance, there's. If you're doing just a belly, the belt buckle shining type dance, there's some stuff about that. If you're going to want to play with your fiddle and such, you can do that. I mean, there's just so many different things that they have done. and they work so well as DJs who get to occasionally play country music. So they definitely would have to be hitting because of the amount of inventory on my computer, in my music library, but also because they have been around for like next to ever. And if it wouldn't be for illness and such affecting them now, these guys are still out performing on a regular basis. But
yeah, they had some crossover stuff too, which was neat to see. Of course, it's hard for me to I guess figure out what was really crossover and what was really just me hearing a lot because I lived in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and that could be it. There might have been a couple of things. Didn't make it up in this neck of the woods as a crossover.
Well, like I can think like I used to hear the track "Take Me Down" on Top 40 Radio all the time.
Oh, okay.
And occasionally Mountain Music. "Feels So Right" was another one that we heard a lot. Right around there. I don't know what album that was or what set of albums that was, but probably 81, 82-ish.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of Alabama. And it was, like I say, Top 40 Radio play in Oklahoma, what does that mean? But yeah, to me, they're pop songs.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely, especially in that vicinity, I could definitely see it being the case. But there's just so many. If you guys haven't, if you've only played mountain music, and if you're going to play in Texas, there's just so much more. The song "She and I" is a great song for the people. If you've got some two-steppers in the crowd, that's a great song. "Dixieland Delight's" another one that
we heard that one a lot too.
It works with the crowd. There's some ballads in there.
"Feels So Right" is one that sticks in my head.
Yeah, "Feels So Right" is in there. There's numerous. I'm just drawing a blank on some of the ballads. I'm not a huge fan of the Alabama ballads myself. One of the most overrated Alabama songs that they ask for, but they never do anything to, is "Cheap Seats." I've had more requests over the years for "Cheap Seats," and it's like, okay, I can play that, and you play it, and it's like, I don't know if they're after the baseball thing of it and such. I mean, it's a good song, but
yeah,
it never worked. It
doesn't always translate well to the dance floor.
It doesn't. Yeah, not a bit. So anyway, so that was my next pick, was Alabama.
Good pick. I'm going to go my number 2, leading up to my number 1. Number 2 would be, what do you think it is? What do you think my number 2 band is? Based on what I'm talking about, who do you think my number 2 is?
Oh, so we have to base it off tonight's discussion.
Base it off what I'm talking about. Base it off contributing members, multiple lead singers, that kind of thing. Who are they?
Good.
Don't you? It's Eagles. And I'm not even my favorite band.
I was going to say I've got a gut feeling of what should a couple of them that should have been on the list, but Eagles, I guess I wouldn't have jumped at that one.
Eagles for sure.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing about, and I say Eagles because that's what you're supposed to. I'm not supposed to say the Eagles, but we'll say it. We'll let it slip here and there. It's actually Eagles.
Yep.
The Eagles, as they are as a group, went through a few personnel changes, but they were all positive personnel changes, which was the interesting part about it. And there's no one who was in that band who did not contribute something huge. I can think of, let's see, oh boy, I think they ended up with 5 people singing on hits, doing lead vocals on hits, if I'm thinking right.
Mm-hmm.
They all wrote something. They all contributed something really hot to the band. Now, as time went on, it became the Don Henley, Glenn Frey project. I totally get that. But there was a time when that band was a supergroup because there was, Don Felder. I mean, that guy wrote Hotel California and they pushed him out, which is, I mean, wow, that's like the Eagles. That's the Eagles song, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one you think of. Don Felder wrote that. And he's like discredited. It's Glenn Frey and Don Henley. But no, Joe Walsh, he joined the band. And Joe contributed big time. And was it Timothy B. Schmidt? I can't tell you why. He was the guy who came in and replaced the bass player, lose me. Anyway, he replaced him, and he had a number 1 hit with them that he wrote and sang on. That's impressive. A lot of turmoil, a lot of personnel, but they were positive personnel changes. And I think, that makes them a very unique act. And they're still touring even without Glenn Frey. I think Glenn Frey's son is doing the lead guitar now, and well received, very well received. So, I mean, Don Henley is a force of nature. I mean, that guy you know, they were kind of getting away from anybody else singing. You know, it's like, well, why can't I sing a song? It's like, why? We got Don Henley. We don't need you to sing.
You just be back there
Just
and
just
be
just
pretty.
play the guitar, Don Felder. Shut up, because Don Henley's singing a song. We don't need you. We got Don Henley. Which was unfortunate in a way. Yeah, a lot of good hits, but unfortunate in a way because you lost that variety. It did kind of become the Glenn Fry, Don Henley show. But again, there was a time, for a long time, when that group was a force, and everybody contributed.
Mhm.
Every single member of that band contributed something, writing, singing, something. Any one of those members weren't in that band, we wouldn't have some of the hits that we have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and there's a pool of talent there and a track record of great music.
Yeah, is it Randy? What was his name? I can't remember all my Eagles. Yeah, Randy Mesler. He's the one who did Desperado, I think. He wrote and sang that, and then Timothy B. Schmidt replaced him and did I Can't Tell You Why. So, holy crap! Wow, what a bunch of talent. You know, no matter what happened, it worked well for them. You can't say that about every band, but you can say that about Eagles. So that's my pick.
Yeah, and Joe Walsh, I still think is one of the as an independent or when he went solo and in some of his solo work, it's kind of like a Ringo thing where it's a little bit quirky, a little bit different.
Well, Joe was solo. You know, Joe was in bands, and I think he was in Spencer Davis group.
He's been in a couple of back and forth.
And then he was solo, and then he joined Eagles, and then when that went kaboom, or he always did solo stuff. I don't think there was a point where he just didn't do it anymore. He did his own thing, and then he did Eagles stuff.
Yeah, that quirky side of him.
But yeah, he's definitely a whack job. But I love the guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he does some interesting. Some of my favorite songs from that collective of people are Joe Walsh songs. There's something about the song "Life's Been Good" that's just hilarious to me. You know.
And if you guys want to check out a cool version of that, you go to Daryl's was it Daryl's garage, Daryl's basement,
Daryl's house. Yeah,
got to watch that episode.
That one's fun. Yeah,
that was fun. Joe Walsh in Daryl's house. Daryl from Hall and Oates. Daryl Hall there, and it's a fun one. Cool.
Yeah,
good pick.
I just watched some stuff on live at Daryl's house with Kenny Loggins.
Is he still doing that, or is he?
I don't know.
No,
but every time I want to see something, it's an older thing.
Yeah.
So it's like 2012. Last I heard, he was.
That would be.
It's good stuff, though.
Yeah, I enjoyed the few I watched. Good.
What do you got for your next pick?
Okay. The last one is I probably this particular band I got into from kind of a backwards methodology. I didn't really get into their music and their thing until I started going backwards with the solo career from one of the main ones, and then once I really got into the solo career of that person, it's like, wait a second, the band he was with before is actually really quite good. So I'm talking about Genesis, and specifically the Phil Collins, and working backwards into that, and with Peter Rutherford, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Isn't that
oh, geez,
Tony Banks?
There you go.
Obviously,
Mike
Rutherford and Phil Collins are the two that really were. And I didn't get into Mike Rutherford's music quite as much as I did Phil Collins' music as they went solo in their careers. I mean, I appreciate
Mike and Mechanic stuff, and
it was like okay, but it's like, it's almost at times too depressing or too something or another, and Phil Collins was writing that pop stuff basically to a point, somewhat of the formula. The pop music where it was on hitting the charts and hitting it well.
So are you going back to like, and then there were three?
Going back no.
Because that's like Follow You, Follow Me. That's like the first.
Yeah, I didn't go back to that far. It basically getting into some of the early 80s. I mean, I think they started in the early 70s is where they really started up.
Yeah, they did. And do you know who the lead singer was?
No, I didn't go back that far.
Peter Gabriel.
Oh, Peter was in there. Okay.
Peter Gabriel was the lead singer of Genesis. And if you want to hear something crazy, go way back and listen to that. Because what happened was it was a 5-member group. and then I forget who the first member was, but then it was a 4-member group. But anyway, so yeah, that was Peter Gabriel, and he was like, how can I describe Peter Gabriel? I've heard stories about Drax before I showed up on the scene, where he kind of like dressed crazy.
Yep.
You know, that was Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel would come out dressed like a giant fruit or like a monster, or he'd shave his head like right here, do like a reverse mohawk, and wear a lot of dresses and just wacky weird stuff. People would go to these shows just to see what Peter Gabriel was going to do.
Wow.
And Phil Collins was the nice young man behind the drums that was from the conservatory. So eventually the story is that and there's a couple tracks that I will recommend that you listen to. The one that you have to hear is called "The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway."
Okay.
That was one of the great Genesis tracks featuring Peter Gabriel. So what happened was Peter Gabriel was married, and his wife was having pregnancy complications, and they were recording the album "The Lamb" with "The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway" on it. And Peter kept having to leave. He's like, I gotta go. My wife, I gotta go. And the boys started giving him crap for it. It's like, hey man, if you can't be here to record, you need to just leave the band. So eventually it's like, hey, my wife's more important than this band. See you later. And he exited like that. So then it's like, okay, now there's like, 3 of us. So they brought in a bunch of people to audition to replace Peter Gabriel as lead singer. And Phil Collins was like, no, it's like this. And then he would sing it. And eventually, like Mike Rutherford's like, you know what? Maybe we've had you all along. Maybe you should just do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did the album, and then there were 3. And that's the one that's the sound that
Yeah.
where it follow you and follow me. That's where it all started. And that was 77 or 78. And then it just kind of built from there. But they're all friends again, by the way. And I think they've even considered doing something together. I mean, all of them. Again.
Wow.
So there was recently a documentary called "And Then There Were 5." And they were all back together again talking today. It was like, that came out like, I don't know, not too long ago, like 6 months ago. Peter Gabriel, it's Mike Rutherford, it's Phil Collins. They're all sitting around talking like they're friends, and they're talking about the history of the group. So, interesting choice, but a good choice. I like it.
Yeah,
and they all did contribute.
They contributed, and once again, we've got people who went off, and each one was successful in their own right to some point, and we didn't have a lot of nastiness, people doing their whatever. I mean, you've got some people who are fairly well respected within the industry again. Mike
Rutherford was so funny. He's like, how did you feel, when Phil went off and did his solo stuff? It's like, well, we love Phil. We wished him the best. We wanted him to do well, but not that well. We didn't want to do that good without us. So yeah, It's good stuff. I love that band. I love all incarnations of it. But do yourself a favor and listen to "The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway."
I'll have to,
because you hear Phil Collins, you hear his drumming. You can't mistake it from anybody else's drumming. But it's Peter Gabriel singing. And if you really want to trip, watch some YouTube video of Peter Gabriel back then with Genesis. It'll blow your mind. It's interesting stuff.
I will have to search for that.
Just a little recommendation for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my turn.
What do you got?
In my humble opinion, the best band of all time. The best band. And I'm talking about a band. I'm talking about a group of people. There's 5 of them.
Okay.
Together. And if any one member of that band would leave, the band wouldn't be the same. That's what makes it great.
Ooh.
So there's no one member that you could lose. You have to have all 5. And don't get me wrong, they all do well by themselves, but as a band, it wouldn't be the same without all 5 of them. And they didn't start out that way. The band started in the late 60s. The band started as
One Direction started a little sooner than that.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not talking about One Direction. I know. They started out in the late 60s. They had several No, so, okay, I'm going to stop right there. Somebody said Rolling Stones,
I thought about
and no, and I'll tell you why Rolling Stones isn't one of the greatest bands, because Rolling Stones isn't really a band. The Rolling Stones is the Keith Richards band featuring Mick Jagger. There are 3 members of the Rolling Stones that matter. Only 3. It's Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Charlie Watts. Now, the reason Charlie Watts matters is because he can follow Keith's lead on guitar and play drums, and that's very hard to do. That's the quintessential sound of the music of the Rolling Stones, is the fact that usually the drummer sets the beat, right? And then the rest of the band kind of follows. But that's not how the Stones work. Keith Richards leading that, and Charlie Watts is following him on the drums. That's a very difficult thing to do musically, but it's a very unique sound, and it can train wreck really fast. So you've got to really have a interesting type of a musical relationship with your guitar player to be able to follow them on the drums. And of course, Mick Jagger sings. Keith Richards does not sing Rolling Stone songs. You know, you hear the voice, it's Mick Jagger. It's a Rolling Stone song, or he's doing something solo. You don't hear anybody else sing. You don't hear Keith Richards sing and think to yourself, oh, it's a Stone song. Like, who the hell is that? Because he never sings, right? So that's why the Stones. I love the Stones. I'm a big fan. If you know me, you know I love the Stones. But that's a dictatorship. That's the Keith Richards dictatorship, not a band. So just to be clear, that's why they didn't make the cut.
Okay, so we have another guess. Let's see, we've got Slipknot. No, Aerosmith is another guess.
No, absolutely not. You got one guy singing on that one too, Steven Tyler. That's it. And I don't believe that. I believe actually that Steven Tyler could do a song with another group of musicians and call it Aerosmith, and you wouldn't know the difference.
I would agree.
So, I mean, you might, okay, but yeah, that's not it. No, and actually, the Village People. That's an interesting story we may not talk about this week, but they're actually a real band. That the Village People. I know they're just a singing group, but they're all equal partners in that group. So that's really cool. They're actually a band, and they make decisions together, and they're a board of directors. So they're more of a band than a lot of the bands that we're talking. Village People are more of a band than the Stones are in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
You know that when they fly around, like go and they tour them, Keith Richards sits in first class and Mick Jagger sits in coach. That's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
The Keith Richards band featuring Mick Jagger all day. Anyway, so the best band of all time, I'm going to give it to the Buckingham Nicks incarnation of Fleetwood Mac. Because every single one of those people contributed something amazing and that we all know to that band, and they continue to do it to this day. So you've got this band, Fleetwood Mac, has been around since the 60s. Their former guitar player actually wrote Black Magic Woman that Santana made famous.
Yep.
They were like a British blues band, with moderate success. And they came to the States. They had Bob Welsh. He's the guy who did Ebony Eyes, if you remember that track from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
They had him on. He was a guitar player, and he left. And you've got John McVie, who married Chris. I forget Christine's original last name. It was something funny, actually. It was like the name was great. I wish she'd have kept it. But anyway, she became Christine McVie, and I'll have my wife join the band. Whatever. But no, fantastic. And she was a blues singer, and she was a musician. Great fit. And they're like, what do we do? So Buckingham Nicks, a couple, Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, are doing things together, not really going anywhere with it, but they're doing things. And they join this band, this pre-existing band that's been around for almost 10 years at this point, thinking, well, we can contribute something. We don't know. Wow. Amazing what these people did as a collective. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, or Christine McVie can sing on a song and you go, oh, it's Fleetwood Mac.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, well, who's that? No, it's Fleetwood Mac. It's a sound. It's a very unique sound. It has, and the harmonies that Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks alone produce Oh my gosh. And Stevie sounds ridiculous, but somehow Lindsay's voice brings something out in hers. Stevie, amazing lyricist. She wrote so many cool things for that band. She's a little out there, you know. She admits it. And the rest of the band's like, yeah, she's like, I don't know, she's Stevie. But she brings something really cool and quirky to the band that works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lindsey Buckingham, amazing writer, amazing guitar player. John McVie, crazy bass player. He creates like amazing grooves. You know, Mick Fleetwood's the backbone of the whole thing, you know, of course. And Christine McVie is just a fantastic, accomplished musician. And they've all contributed. I recently watched a YouTube video on the song The Chain. You know the song?
Mm-hmm.
It was never a hit. It was never a single. But we all know it because we know the album backwards and forwards of Rumors, one of the best-selling albums of all time. So I think Christine McVie wrote the lyrics on that one. And then Mick kind of gave it the drums and then like, well, we don't know what group to put in here. And Lindsay had this track that he had done with Buckingham Nicks and said, let's try this. And that's the sound, you know, that that's the sound. And then John McVie jumps in. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, everyone wrote that song. It wasn't one person who did it and said, hey, you do this. No, they all did it together. That's a band. That's an amazing band. And like I said, any one member leaves, it ain't the same.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tried to tour like that. They've tried to tour without Christine McVie, and it just doesn't work. You got to have Christine McVie in there. I mean, otherwise, what's the point? There's so many songs that she does. She does Say You Love Me. That's her song. Don't Stop is her. There are so many tracks that she should be singing on. And if she's not there, something's missing. I don't know. I can't think of another band where every single member is as important as it is in Fleetwood Mac's 75, 76 incarnation. If you can think of one, please let me know who they are, because I cannot think of one single band where every member is that important. I even thought about the Beatles. I thought, gee, if Ringo Starr wasn't in the Beatles from like 1966 on, they probably could have put about anybody in there and they'd have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get rid of Mick Fleetwood.
Yeah, not so much.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, anyway.
Cool. Well, that was neat.
My pick.
Yeah.
And I'm challenging anybody to help me out. Yeah, somebody mentioned in the chat, Lindsay and Christine are working on a project right now. They're going to tour together. Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie, which is a really weird combo when you think about it. They're going to tour together. They're working on a project right now, and it's gotten great review. I mean, the stuff that they're doing, people are really digging it. So, yeah. My musical rant for the week.
There you go. Well, that was good. That was fun.
Got it out.
Okay, now to shift gears just a little bit. We've got a little. We're going to talk a little bit about some Electro Voice stuff here in just a sec. But before we do that, what's up with the UV lights?
Oh, nothing.
No. You've been using UV lights in your project.
I don't know if there's anything up with it or not. I read that they're using UV in industrial applications to help dry certain paints. I've also heard that certain types of UV lights are instantly drying ink, speeding up the printing process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought to myself, geez, I've got some stuff that needs to be painted, and it's wet, and wow, I wonder if my UV black lights would help expedite this process a little bit. I think it may have. I don't know that it has, but I think it may have. The first night I put like the tool chest up and I shot it with light, and the next morning it felt pretty dry. And everybody asked, did it work? Well, I don't know. Maybe it would have dried that hard otherwise. I don't know.
You're in a basement though, and that's not
right.
Basements aren't the typically driest part of the house, so
it's not too bad down here. But I get your point. This is a relatively dry basement for a 112-year-old house. The thing I had to do was paint the drawers yesterday about the same time of day, and I brought them downstairs about the same time of day, but I did not put UV on them, and I kind of tested them a little bit, and the paint feels a little softer. So I think there's something to using a little bit of that UV light. It doesn't instantly dry things like it does in industrial applications, but I think it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are saying, no, your imagination. But I think it did help. I think it did. I don't know.
You sound so sure of it.
Well, I really, I was just trying things, and what the heck? I mean, right now I've got the thing in the back room, and it's ridiculous. I've got an IR infrared heater on in that room,
Mm-hmm.
which is dumb because it's like 90 degrees outside, and I've got windows open, and the air conditioner's on. So I don't know that it's doing anything. I got thermostat set to 76 on the thing, and I don't think it's under 76 in that room because I've got all the vents closed off down here for the air conditioning. Because otherwise, you just freeze down here and put a park on in July. It's stupid. So I close all the vents, I tape them off so all the air conditioning goes upstairs. Because cold air goes down, hot air goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do in my house is I open all of the vents on the second floor. I close all the vents on the first floor because the bedrooms are cool and that air comes down into the first floor. The wintertime, I do the opposite. I close all the vents on the upper level and I open them all on the first level, so the heat rises.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it worked. Maybe it didn't.
Let's see before they'll probably handle it. So Electro Voice tonight. We did a little bit of a show before we went live here, and we were on Mr. Dussault from Electro Voice, who is the North American, basically the guy for Electro Voice in North America. And he showed a picture of the new Electro Voice line array system that's coming out.
What's it called?
That he wouldn't give us. He wouldn't give us any specs. He wouldn't give us any names. We just got to see that it is. What I can tell you is the top is
keep talking.
The top has 8 drivers, 3.5-inch drivers.
Okay, I'm listening.
And it has a 12-inch sub. Is the one he was talking about.
Yeah.
And it looked beautiful on his cell phone. It was a beautiful moment, man. I cried just a little.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I gotta move this thing.
Yeah, can you move that thing? Because there's this thing in the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just put it over here.
Yeah, well, yeah. That would be a good thing to move over there. Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
I don't either. But they were by the picture. The subwoofer looked, somewhat like the size of the thing you were just holding there. By chance, it just happened to look.
Look, he's swore me to secrecy, but I'll tell you this. I won't tell you anything else, but I will tell you this. Had it out twice. All right. I promise no pictures. I'm not talking about it or anything else. So I'm going to talk about it in very generic terms. Had it out twice. Both times, quinceañeras, where a lot of bass is necessary. First event, about 200 people. Second event, about 150. Got bass complaints on the second event. It was too much bass. And I'm able to carry that thing very easily. But I can't tell you much else, except that the damn thing rocks. It's really cool. Because I promised I wouldn't.
We can't really say anything. Dealers are going to be announcing things late August. We're going to see them at DJ Expo. So Brian and I will be actually coming to you at some point in time when we can. We're hoping, if it works, we're going to try to sneak into the room on Monday when everyone else is setting up, and we're going to try to bring you a sneak peek ahead of everybody else and say here they are.
I haven't put it together yet, but I'm going to put a video together for this. So when Mike is kind enough to tell me, go ahead, I can post it. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. I will tell you this, that I want to use these really bad on the 29th at a gig that I'm doing. I don't know that I'm going to be able to have them that long because I actually have the super secret prototypes that I got to send back. But if I'm a good boy, they'll send me a new pair of production models when they come out. But there's a gig I really want to use these from the 29th. So I'm going to reach out to Mike and just make sure I can have them that long. I will put them on the pallet and back like that Monday. Like back, here you go. But I really want them for the 29th gig. I'm looking forward to it. They're cool. They're cool because they're lightweight. It's a very easy setup. It's not complicated. I can't tell you anything else.
Yeah, we that's about as far as we can go for now. But they
It's
will
about
be.
as far as I can go without getting phone calls and beat up. You said you wouldn't say anything. That's the last time. You know, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. I want friends in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Matthew, we can't show you anymore. If you watch the video beforehand, they were
Rewinded, pause it, everything else.
exactly. They were towards the end of the video, probably about 15 to 20 minutes in from the end of the last video that we.
I just wanted to gloat that I actually had some of this, and I won't tell you the name.
Yep, we can't talk about anything.
And what I'll tell you, I will tell you one thing that's kind of funny. In the box, there's a brochure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, cool. I'm gonna look at the specs on this thing. It's blank. There's nothing there. It'll say, well, there's stuff there, but none of the information's there. So it'll say something like, woofer, and then it'll like have a dash and like a column that's supposed to be like a value. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Watts, no value, nothing. Everything. There's nothing. It's just blank.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
That's
Why did they
production.
bother even putting in there? I don't know.
That's the pre-production stuff. We want to make sure they have it all.
But why even bother? What's the point?
Yeah.
Just don't put it in there. So that was kind of humorous. But yeah, my some of my pals have had the pleasure of using these at gigs. But yeah, been out on two gigs.
Nice.
They were out this last weekend. They were out the weekend before, and just rocked the crowds. And for what they are, I am incredibly impressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm excited to finally get to play with those and such, because they pretty much know that I'm such a blabbermouth that if I get something, I can't not be yapping about it. So
I've been good. I haven't
you
said
have been, and you've had them for a while. We've known that, and
I think I told you I had something, but
yeah,
I didn't
exactly. That was
stand on it or anything. So
a DJ Expo in Minnesota, not this year. I've got too many other things that are going on and such this year, so we're not going to be doing anything, and we'll see what 2018 is going to look like and figure out what's going on there.
Before we wrap the show, and I know we're going to wrap it in a second, I just wanted to mention that I canceled my reservation at the Sheraton. I'm at the Tropicana with you fools. So, for what that's worth.
Okay.
Like, oh crap, thought we were rid of you. But you're a Trop, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm over at the Sheraton, so.
You're at the Sheraton?
Yeah.
I was at the Sheraton. I canceled to go to the Trop because I thought you were at the Trop.
No, we went there. I shouldn't say. I'm gonna have rooms at both places. That just because then if we need to run back to a room for something, that we'll have. Stuff.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I was.
You're gonna broadcast out of Trop, though, aren't you?
I probably will be. Yeah, that's why we'll probably be dropping gear off there, and because all we really need over at the Sheraton in the exhibit hall is a camcorder and a microphone. Over at the other spot, we're going to need the laptops and the multi mics and yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, looking forward.
I just didn't want to be there all by myself, so I moved to the Trop. But if I had known you there, I would have stayed.
We'll have fun. That's
of course.
And Lori will keep us out of trouble, so that's the important part.
I need somebody to keep us out of trouble. Yeah. You know why? Because Dina from Scrim King is going to be there, and she always gets me in trouble.
I don't know if I've met Dana. I'll have to.
You met Dina?
I don't think so.
Wow. Yeah, Gabe's wife. She's wonderful. But yeah, her and I are thick as thieves, and she always gets me in trouble. Every year she gets me in trouble. And she's the only person who can make me drink. I don't drink otherwise, but Dina forces alcohol into my system, and I can't resist. I get drunk with Gabe's wife at least once a year. We got drunk in Canada this year, so maybe twice this year. Holy crap.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Canadian beer is much stronger. So
no, well, it doesn't matter. We drink in America most of the time.
Ah.
Yeah, she'll drive me to drinking. She always does.
Well, gang, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. If you have any questions or anything, comments section down below after the video is processed, or you can just reach out to Brian and myself online on our different Facebook pages, and we'll do our best to answer questions. If you have something you'd like us to, Brian, do you need a ride from the airport?
I think Howie's got me covered. And I'm there. So I'm coming in with the crew from ADJ. We've got a van, so we're going in together on I think Monday. I'm going back to the airport to fly out. I just got my flights booked today on that, and I think I'm flying out at like 8 something or other on Thursday. I wanted to stick around for the end of the expo, but I didn't want to stay until Friday.
Yeah.
So I got an evening flight out of Philly at 8 something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think we land about 5 p.m. Sunday in
Okay.
Philly, and then we head off. I think we take like a 5 or 6 p.m. flight out of Philly. So on Wednesday.
yeah, so I don't like leaving Wednesday. I feel like I'm always missing out on something. So we fly in Monday because there's something going on. Tuesday, Wednesday, then the short little thing on Thursday I go to. Then I can just go to the airport. And whoever's heading that way, I'll hop in a car with them. Howie said he had me covered, and Howie smokes kind of like I do. So he said he'd bring the smoking truck.
Oh, funny.
It could be kind of nice. So,
That'd be good.
yeah.
That'd be a fun. That'd be a
But
fun
thank you.
trip.
If I need anything, I'll let you guys know. But I think
Yeah.
I'm covered.
Cool. And we'll be chatting more about that as we go. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and we'll be back again next week with more stuff. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover, please let us know. Good night, everybody.